Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to this Blitz chess postmortem. This is a postmortem of my Blitz game number 262. I was white here, kicked off with d4. I was thinking, well, maybe I could get into a Queen's Gambit declined, like I've been covering in the Chess Basics series, but my opponent plays knight f6, which is a move that usually introduces, King's Indian or Nimzo Indian or one of those openings. Plays c4 anyway, which is the main move, and then he plays d5, the martial defense to the Queen's Gambit declined. So if we look at this, this is actually the position that could have been reached from the other move order. So d4, d5, c4, Queen's Gambit, and then knight f6, defending the pawn is the martial defense to the Queen's Gambit. So so this is a Queen's Gambit declined after all. And the move here given by the opening book, knight f3, is a way of kind of avoiding unusual lines and just going for mainline positions in the Queen's Gambit declined. But if you want to sort of counter the martial defense, the best move is really just to take that pawn. And now if he takes back with the queen or the knight, which are typical moves, then you get a good game because you actually win a tempo in one of those pieces. It's interesting, the chess engine is suggesting a gambit with c6, which I've never seen anyone play, but that may be an interesting idea. It's a way to get a better position than what you usually get out of the martial defense. Okay, so knight takes, and then I play e4 right away, and I guess that's a bit of an inaccuracy. I think after reviewing this game, I think that the best move is really knight f3, which is clamping down on this move e5, so that and you can still play e4 later. So for example, if black plays bishop f5 trying to stop e4, you have knight knight bd2, and that continues to support this e4 idea. Now the knight has to move, and you gain that tempo one way or another. The only thing to remember is to avoid playing the move knight c3. You see, knight c3 is actually in the opening book here, but it's got a question mark after it. The thing is that he can just take the knight with tempo because it attacks the queen. So so his knight on d4 on d5 doesn't have to waste a move, and so you've lost this whole idea of playing against the martial and trying to gain a tempo. So so that's the way to play bishop knight f3, and then followed by e4. And if he plays bishop f5, to remember knight bd2. But I played the move e4 right away, and the reason this isn't so accurate is that he could play knight f6. He didn't play this. And then I play knight c3 to defend the pawn. He can play e5. And so that's the move that would have been prevented. And this kind of equalizes for black in a way. If you take the pawn, then he can trade queens and disrupt your castling privileges. And the knight f3 line here that the chess engine gives, and even the opening book, this leads to a position where a lot of force has been removed from the board. And you know, white has some edge in development, but it would be hard to go on and win from this position. So so black has decent chances to hold. So that's why backing up in this position before playing e4, it's better to throw in the move knight f3. Okay, but I didn't remember all of that. I played e4, and then he went knight b6, which is just not as good. And we're pretty much out of the opening book there. I play knight f3, just continuing to develop. So you see, I keep a pretty strong advantage here now that his piece is over here on the side of the board. And I maintain this for a while, so you get kind of normal developing moves. I'm paying attention to the d5 pawn because I don't want d4 pawn, because I don't want him to take the knight and then to be able to grab this pawn at some time. But he didn't develop his knight to c6 for a long time, so this pawn was not really under attack, so didn't really have to worry so much about it. He decides to go ahead and take the knight and develop his knight to c6 here. So anyway, this is one of the first interesting points in the game. The move I played is d5, and I think it's just a premature pawn push. The thing is, I've got a good center. I've got some of my pieces developed, but I haven't necessarily put every piece out where it belongs. And so I could spend some time just getting my pieces to better squares, like the engine is recommending queen b3, rook c1, these kind of moves. Maybe even put the rook on d1 and then prepare this push d5 to open things up and take advantage of my better placed pieces. While black's pieces, you know, he's just going to have to find ways to maneuver in he has less space here because I've grabbed the center and fewer good squares for him. So that's the best way to play this position. You've got an advantage in space, you know, you need to take advantage of it by putting all your pieces on good squares and looking for that opportunity to open it up when you've got everything set up. Okay, but I pushed on with d5 immediately, and then he took on c3. Now I took back, but I did notice in the postmortem that the engine is recommending taking on c6, which is a very funny kind of move. At first I thought that was just losing a pawn. But the computer is really clever. So this is the kind of thing, even if I had stopped to think about it, take here or take here, I probably would have still ended up taking the bishop because it's just too deep to see, even in a slow game. But it's an interesting example of the kind of tactics that computers can find. So suppose I had taken the knight, and then I'm not going to play the best moves, I'm just going to play the line I thought of. You know, suppose he just grabs the pawn and I attack his bishop. So the bishop retreats. Then maybe I trade queens, trying to prove that I've got something here. Rook takes, and I grab this pawn, and now his rook has to move. And then I bring my rook out. You know, so I'm playing actively, but at the same time it looks like he can round up this pawn and just be a pawn ahead. So why is this so good for white? Well, the first thing to notice is that rook takes pawn is not possible because when I take his rook, it's checkmate. So rook takes d1, okay, I'll buy that. And then why can't he take the pawn here? Well, once again, rook down is checkmate. So if he plays king f8, trying to defend, then bishop e2, okay, I understand this move now. The bishop is going to come here and defend the pawn. So now he's in position. He's finally got his king here where it's not getting checkmated, and he needs to take the pawn now if he's going to take it. So he does. And now there's a sequence of moves here. Bishop c5 check. And if the king runs to the center, if the king goes the other way, of course, it's checkmate. So if he runs to the center, then you've got this check and this check. And you're picking up the rook. So he can't do that. So he has to block with the bishop. And now you have this move, bishop a6, attacking the rook. And if the rook drops back, trying to hold on, remember, black is still a pawn up at this point. You have this great move, rook takes bishop, with the idea, this is a very classic tactic of when you take back with the bishop, you win the rook again, and you're just a piece up. So in this position, he can't move the rook, and he has to give up the exchange. So anyway, that's an example after how many moves? So we're at move 13, and this is move 21. So 8 moves deep, you win the exchange, and that's why the computer thinks this is a good line for black. And of course, there are many other ways for both sides to play, and the chess engine, you know, just had to calculate all of those lines and determine that in every case, it's better. This line starting with pawn takes knight is better. Pretty interesting, I think. An example of why computers are better than humans. Okay, I took the bishop. A human move. And he takes back, and I take back. And you know, black is now pretty much in the game. I've given away what advantage I had by pushing on. But black doesn't find the most accurate moves. Maybe having these pawns in the center is a bit of an edge for white. Makes it a little difficult for black to find the right moves. But well, I didn't play the right move there either. And at this point, okay, so it becomes dead even after a few more moves. I thought, well, anchoring the bishop here would be good for something, and he's got these doubled pawns. But the engine is skeptical. It says, no, black is fine here. So the game continues. He's pinning my knight, and I want to unpin. Pinning my bishop, rather, and I want to unpin. And then just developing my rooks. And right here, I start to set up some threats on f7, and so this move queen c5 was maybe a bit of a mistake because he's left off the defense of f7, trying to get active. He's got some ideas of coming in here with the knight at the right time. but I've got that covered at the moment. And rook here, king g7, and now rook takes e5 is winning. Yeah. So after, oh, I went all the way back. Right here, after rook fe1, the only move, which I mentioned during the game, is he's got to come back and defend. He's got to defend the knight, which is under attack. The knight is attacked by 2 pieces. And he's also got to defend the pawn on f7, and queen c7 is the only move that does it. I mentioned the move queen e6, but the problem with that move is, of course, that bishop takes here is with check, so that loses the queen for a couple pieces. So queen c7 is a way for black to hold on to this position and keep playing. You know, white has an advantage. The material is even, but white's pieces are all better placed and got a strong attack here, so should be good. Looks like rook takes e5 is still a good move here anyway. Well, let's follow this sequence. Rook takes e5, rook takes, queen takes f7 check, queen takes, and bishop takes f7. Oh, that's a neat trick. Once again, taking advantage of a discovered attack. And so you'd get this pawn up endgame. I don't know if I would go for that, even if I saw it. This might be a difficult endgame to win. But you do have an extra pawn here. But these pawns are possibly weak. Yeah. Well, it'd be an interesting way to play. But my opponent instead played the move king g7, which just doesn't address the issues. So I can now take the knight, and so I'm just playing a piece up. And I don't find the most accurate moves, but I never let the win slip away. And after a few more moves, yeah, my opponent resigned here. So that's how the game ended. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I thought there were a couple of cute sequences the Chess Engine found in that game. Leave any comments you have in the section below, and I will see you again soon. Bye.